has once called her one of the 3 hardest working players she ever competed against. She won 3 major championships. She was inducted into the World Golf Hall of Fame, and yet the world remembers her for a bathtub full of golf balls. The very thing that made her famous is the same thing golf history quietly blamed for her downfall. But the real ending of her career was not a photograph, a headline, or a swing. It was one night in Miami, and nobody saw it coming. Jan Stephenson was born in Sydney, Australia in 1951. She picked up a golf club for the first time at age 10, and the talent showed almost immediately. Within a few years, she had won 5 straight New South Wales schoolgirl championships, followed by 3 consecutive New South Wales junior titles. By her early teens, she was already being treated as the most promising junior golfer in the country. Her father, Frank, was the driving force behind that talent. He worked with her constantly, pushing her through early mornings and long practice sessions. One particular morning has stayed with her for decades. It was cold, and a teenage Jan told her father she did not want to get out of bed to practice. Instead of arguing, he placed a warm water bottle at her feet and said something she never forgot. "If you get up now and practice, one day you might win the US Open." That kind of belief made the setback that followed even harder to accept. At 15 years old, Stephenson won every single trial required to represent her state at the national championships. The stroke play trial, the match play trial, all of it. And still, the selectors left her off the team, citing her age. She had earned the spot through performance, and it was taken away anyway. It was a devastating blow at the time. But it also pushed her toward a decision most 15-year-olds would never consider. Rather than wait for permission from a selection committee, Stephenson turned professional in 1973, joining the Australian LPGA before she had even finished her teenage years. Stephenson joined the American LPGA Tour in 1974 and was immediately named Rookie of the Year. But recognition on paper was not the same as recognition in the sport. For 2 years, she remained a talented player without a signature win. Close, but not yet a champion. That changed heading into a tournament in Naples, Florida in early 1976. Before the event, LPGA Commissioner Ray Volpe had already noticed something in Stephenson that went beyond her scorecard. He told her plainly what he needed from her. "If you could just win, then I could really promote you and they wouldn't be able to say, 'She's just a pretty face.'" The message was clear. Her talent alone was not going to be enough to build the story Volpe wanted. She needed a victory first. The weather did not cooperate. It turned unexpectedly cold for Florida, and Stephenson had to buy a wool hat from the pro shop just to stay warm during play. She later called it one of the best purchases she ever made. In the final round, she was paired with Judy Rankin, and the tournament turned on a single mistake. Rankin made a double bogey on the 9th hole. From that point, Stephenson said, she felt the title belonged to her. She closed out the win despite carding a 76 over the final round of the 54-hole event. The phone call came almost immediately while she was still sitting in the press room. It was Volpe. "This is perfect," he told her. "You are now the face of the LPGA Tour." In that instant, Stephenson stopped being simply a golfer with potential. She became the symbol the entire tour had been waiting for, whether she was ready for everything that title would demand of her or not. Between 1981 and 1983, Stephenson built the finest stretch of golf in her career. 3 major championships, 3 consecutive years. No one else on tour able to match that run at the time. It began with the Du Maurier Classic in 1981. The following year came the LPGA Championship, won in the middle of a personal legal battle that was consuming her time and her focus. She admitted as much before that tournament even started. "I've been spending so much time with lawyers that I don't have time to practice." The 3rd major arrived in July of 1983 at Cedar Ridge Country Club in brutal heat well past 100 degrees. Days before the tournament, Stephenson's golf clubs had been stolen, along with a friend's car. She was forced to compete in one of the biggest events of her life using a borrowed set. It did not slow her down. She edged Joanne Carner and Patty Sheehan by a single stroke to win the U.S. Women's Open. To understand how rare that 3-year run truly was, consider this. Before Stephenson, only Kathy Whitworth had won a major in 3 straight years back in the 1960s. After Stephenson, it would take almost a decade before Patty Sheehan matched it in the early 1990s. In the modern game, dominant stretches like that are almost always attached to the biggest names in the sport. The kind of run that, today, would put a player's name permanently in conversations about the greatest of all time. What made it more remarkable was how it happened. Stephenson was not simply a gifted ball striker coasting on talent. Nancy Lopez, one of her closest rivals on tour, later described watching Stephenson from a hotel room window during one tournament week, practicing on the green long after most players had already gone in for the night. "I'd rank her in the top 3 of hardest working players on tour," Lopez said. "She was always working on something." That combination, natural power, aggressive instincts, and relentless preparation, is what carried Stephenson through the most demanding stretch of women's golf in that era. For 3 years, she was simply better than the field, at the exact moment the sport needed a new face to prove she belonged among its greatest champions. The image of Jan Stephenson as a symbol of glamour began in 1977, when she appeared on the cover of Sport magazine for an issue titled Sex in Sports. The photograph was considered shocking, even by the standards of the time, and it spread through the golf world and beyond almost instantly, long before anyone had a phone in their pocket to share it further. It sparked a debate that lasted for years about how the LPGA should market its players. Nearly a decade later, in 1986, Stephenson posed for a photograph sitting in a bathtub, covered by nothing but dozens of golf balls. It became one of the most recognized images in the history of women's golf, and one of the most divisive. Some of her fellow players supported the attention it brought to the tour. Nancy Lopez was one of them. "It brought people to the gates," she said. Others felt differently, believing the image undermined the athletes competing alongside her. But the real price Stephenson paid was never about public opinion. It was about time, the one resource every professional athlete needs most, and the one she had the least of. While other players spent tournament weeks practicing and resting, Stephenson's schedule was filled with something else entirely. "I'd be doing things on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday," she admitted. "The Pro-Am had to be my practice time. And how many times in my career I didn't finish off because I was exhausted." The toll went beyond the golf course. Looking back, she was direct about what the attention had actually cost her. "I would have had more friends. It would have been a fun time." By the mid-1980s, Stephenson's body and her schedule were already stretched thin, years before anyone would call it a crisis. The bigger collapse had not happened yet, but the foundation for it had already been quietly laid, one exhausting week at a time. By 1987, Stephenson was playing the best golf of her career. She was the tour's leading money winner that season, and heading into the final round of the St. Petersburg Classic, she held a 5-stroke lead. Then, before she ever reached the course, a car ran a red light and crashed directly into hers. The injuries were serious: a head injury, damage to her back, and broken ribs on her left side. Stephenson tried to return to competition almost immediately, before her body had any real chance to heal. It made everything worse. The turning point came a few months later, during an exhibition match with Jack Nicklaus. When Nicklaus realized she was still playing through broken ribs, he told her flatly to withdraw, rest completely, and stay off the course until the pain was gone. Coming from anyone else, she likely would have ignored it, but not this time. "If it had been anyone other than Jack Nicklaus, I would have ignored them," she said. However, when the greatest player of all time said to rest, now that carried some punch. She took the advice. For 2 months, she stepped away from competition entirely, working only on her short game while her body recovered. When she returned for the final events of the season, she finished second in her first tournament back, then won the next 2. Those 2 wins would turn out to be the final LPGA Tour victories of her career. At the time, nobody knew it. Stephenson had just proven her body could absorb a serious collision and still come back stronger. It was a lesson that would not hold the next time disaster found her. In December of 1988, Stephenson's father, Frank, lost his battle with cancer. He had been more than a parent in her golf career. He had caddied for her during her 2 major championship victories in the early 1980s, and his belief in her had shaped her from the very beginning. His death hit her harder than any injury ever had. The following year, 1989, became the worst season of her professional career. By the start of 1990, Stephenson appeared ready to move forward. In her first 2 events of the season, she finished inside the top 10 both times. For the first time in more than a year, it looked as though her game was coming back. During a week off before her next scheduled tournament in South Florida, she and her husband were invited as guests to a Miami Heat basketball game. Nothing about the evening suggested danger. While parking the car before heading inside, Stephenson was suddenly attacked in a brutal mugging. The damage was severe. Her left hand and ring finger were broken in 5 separate places. Her right shoulder was dislocated in the struggle, thrown into the crowd of people who rushed to help her. It was one of the most violent injuries a professional golfer could suffer, to the exact hand she needed for every shot she would ever hit again. What made the moment even harder to accept was what happened around her. Her husband remained inside the car while she was being attacked. Shortly afterward, Stephenson filed for divorce. In the weeks that followed, she reached out to some of the most respected teachers in the sport, hoping to find a way back. Not one of them believed it was possible. The injuries were considered too severe, too damaging to a hand that required precision most players never had to think about. This was not a slow decline brought on by age or lost form. It was a single night that took away her health, her marriage, and, according to nearly everyone she asked, her chance to ever compete at the highest level again. Nearly everyone told Stephenson her competitive career was finished. Instead of accepting that, she found a golf teacher in Australia named Gary Edwin and began building an entirely new swing around her damaged hand. She had her grips made larger and added padding inside her glove just to hold a club without pain. It was not the same swing that had won 3 majors, but it was enough to keep her playing. When full-time competition was no longer realistic, Stephenson redirected her focus toward golf course design, studying turf grass at the University of Georgia and working alongside respected course designers. She became the first female touring professional to build her own golf course design business. She also helped found the Legends Tour, a senior circuit for women, and continued competing there well into her 50s. Recognition from the sport's biggest institution took far longer to arrive. Stephenson was passed over for the World Golf Hall of Fame twice, both times learning the news from her close friend Nancy Lopez. In 2019, Lopez called again. Stephenson braced herself for the same disappointment until Lopez finally delivered different news. She had been voted in. More recently, Stephenson faced a battle far more serious than any injury. She was diagnosed with cancer, and in April of 2024, was told it had returned and spread to her brain. Doctors urged immediate radiation treatment,